Okay, well, here we are. We're live, and it's Thursday, and you're here at the right place. This is where fate and your destiny meant you to be, and here we are, all having a good time together. Welcome, everybody. Bosto to one and all. Favor be in abundance upon us all this day. May it greet us when we come in, and may it greet us going out. May it always make us to be the head, not the tail. May we always come out on top and not beneath. And may we always have more than enough in order to give to others. Nothing missing, nothing broken be in our lives. And hey, abracadabra, we said it, and that's going to, this the way it's going to be, folks. So, hello, all the moderators. So good. Thank you all. Nina the Mystic. Hey, we'll be on together tomorrow with Brian and Steve. Hello, David Castle. Marsha Price. Peace. David Barry, my good dear friend. Hello, Danny. Hello, Hillard. Kent Cook, Kaylee, and all the family. You know, we got people in the family, the Soul Tribe, in Iran. Yeah. Hey, this Soul Tribe is around the world, baby. All around the world. Yep. So happy birthday to all of those that are having one. And let's see, Brianna, how are you doing? Look at me catching. Ah, well, yes. Well, welcome. Hi, Gaia. Loretta, good to see you. John Price, peace be to you. So Debbie Bell, peace. Lost in Space, how are you? Hey, Lost in Space, get this. Speaking of Lost in Space, tonight on the Steiger Perspective, the show is titled Danger, Will Robinson. Artistfirst.com, 10 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Mountain. And I do believe on discord.com, they actually have a chat room where, you know, when I'm on the Artist First Radio Network, that people chime in. You think you're going to go get your money's worth today. Trust me. We're going to be talking a little bit about this today, in fact. So please join us. Think you'll have fun with this. A lot going on. A lot of you may have felt it. There was this kind of, I don't know. I keep saying we're shifting. We're either shifting or modulating. What would be the difference, right? If I'm modulating, am I shifting? Am I adjusting? Am I adapting? But how do you adapt if the modulation is continuous? You almost get vertigo, you know. You ever been seasick? It sucks. I mean, that's almost about like how it's really is. And we're shifting. So get this, Lost in Space. I was talking, hey, Lucky Stone, how you doing? Folks, you really ought to go over and listen to this great philosopher of contemplation of thought, Lucky Stone. Check him out. So I awake this morning about 3:32, about that, because I can see the clock. And I had this weirdest experience. I literally said, I have to go back and look at the mothership. And so I purposely had that in my head. And so I knew I could get into a very quick lucid dreaming state. And I did. And it's really interesting because let me propose this to everyone's thoughts. What if the ships that we see and have seen, as long as Sapiens been here, we seem to see these ships in the air. It occurred to me, what if they're not, let's say, here observing, interfering? What if they're collecting spirits, departed spirits? This vision I had there, and I was looking at the topography of the land, and I could see trees, I could see mountains in the background, and I could see cities. And what I saw were these discs that were coming down, and they were picking up what looked to me to be lights coming up literally from the ground. And then they would go up into what I thought was the mothership, collecting all these smaller ships. But when I went back in my lucid dreaming and arrived back at the same place I was at, observing my dream, the trick, let me tell you how you learn this, folks. This is how you do it. To become effective in lucid dreaming is in your dreams, begin when you see yourself in your dreams, think about your hand. Now, when you can manifest your hand while you're aware, while you're dreaming, it'll enhance the next step. So I came back, and what I did not do was to look up. And when I looked up, I saw the true mothership. It was huge. I couldn't see its end. It was if I had a way to judge it, because I was trying to judge it. And all around I saw these ships that were collecting, these smaller ships that were collecting these lights. I saw it as living life forces. And it began to have me to think, and I was asking, I was there by myself. There was no one else there, which is kind of odd because usually there is. But I began to ask myself, if we are born on Earth, we are a human, an earthling, maybe spirits, ascended spirits, freed spirits, I don't know. Maybe prisoners. It depends, I guess, maybe in your perspective. We actually need ships to travel through the universe. Transportation. I mean, it's only been assumed that spirits can travel wherever they want. Who knows? I haven't gotten that memo yet that says, oh yeah, Steiger, guess what? But it is an intriguing thought to think about. A whole different realm of beings collecting the beings that have ascended as light beings here. Don't know. Tell me what you think. I think White Rabbit, I think that would be right. It was a huge ship. So I don't know. You tell me. Because she was big. And I'd like to go back there again. You know, to me, I took in as much as I could because I was very much aware of the fact, and I thought it was very cool that I arrived right back and the scene was still taking place. That was weird. Um, it seemed like when these smaller ships, and they were disc, it seemed like once they collected all they could on these lights that were coming up out of the ground, they would then join the other ships that were doing the same thing. And then they went up in and literally just became part of this really big craft. I mean, it was really big. And when I looked out, there were as many as those big crafts as I thought that there were with the smaller craft. And all of them were heading up to this really big thing in the sky. And then I began to think about this. So if we're in a ethereal form, think about the environmental controls that you wouldn't need in a ship. I mean, if you're spirit, you don't need oxygen. You're not affected by temperature, one would not think. That would probably be one of the best ways to be transported. Hopefully being transported to somewhere nice. I mean, I would think, and then again, the equation becomes, we have seen demonstrated higher intelligence doesn't necessarily equate to peace. You know, enlightened beings, it shows quite literally the opposite. It seems like the higher the intelligence, the more the ego becomes into play, the more cruel, the more draconian the personification becomes of these beings. And if you doubt me, then I ask you to please explain, how can you have angels or demons? I mean, anyway, I don't believe in that concept anymore. It's preposterous. I mean, either they're human or they're alien. If they're human, okay, they made a choice, and so we describe them as plus or minus. If they're alien, well, who obviously is a question then, where is their loyalty? Do we have them as an ally or as a foe? Who knows? Interesting conversation in the chat. All right, so lot going on today. Money. And I'm just going to tell you straight out. There is a real storm. It's not coming. It's already here. We haven't even begun to feel the outflow effects yet. They're showing, but not in a way that is going to impact all of us. This is why you need to know your magic. It would appear there is a time coming forth, family, that all of us are going to really have to rely upon our own magic. Very well may be for substances. And that's what magic is supposed to do. I mean, magic is to aid you through this journey. It's not there for you to manipulate. You can. The calm before the storm. Yeah, I would definitely say. Very interesting, Brandy. Yeah. And it's, if you get good at it, the universe, the earth, is not running out of anything. That's the biggest myth that you have to understand. That's what money does. It creates a reality of an illusion, of a delusion. So we're going to be talking about money because it's going to be impacting all of us. Now, wealth is not money. Money is not wealth. Money is just, it's magic in its most pure sense. And here's why. What is money? Is it gold? Is it silver? Is it paper? What is money? Now, this is really interesting because pay attention to what I'm about to show you. You see this? Okay, that's silver. In this case, it's a $50. This $50 today is almost worth this. Boom. Which is money here? Now, you can say this coin has a numerical value of 50 cents. But you would be a fool to ever execute upon that. Yeah, your 50 cents today won't buy you very much at all. Barely buy you a candy bar. But if I take the value of what this coin is made of in its weight, now I can buy many, many boxes of my candy bars. Which is more valuable? This or this? Because you see, that's how it used to be, because now everything is here. This is your phone now. This is representative of what's happening now. Now, this is going to play a very important role because you see, this machine supersedes all of these. I can process unlimited amounts of money, depending on how you define it. Now, currency is a different situation. You see, what I just showed you a minute ago was not money per se. It was currency. There is a distinct difference between the two. Because now I can take that currency and I can magically, say, I speak that it shall produce for me. I could really begin to really get into this, and transfer all of this over to this. And furthermore, I only need one interface, that's the digital receptor, which is today your credit or debit card. It's an illusion. Yet people will sell their souls, commit fraud, do just about anything to get money. It's weird. And if you look at how money has always dominated us, almost from the beginning. There was a time when we were more of an agrarian society. Food still has value. In fact, food will become a currency. Count on it. Because you see, I could take this into any place of business, and I could take this into any place of business. And the numerical value of each would mean that this would be superior to this. But the reality is, this is worth many times that. Yeah. So what is happening here? I'm going to show you something. Allow me for 1 second, because there's some weird stuff happening around us. And I want to bring your attention to something. I'm going to be talking more about it tonight on the Steiger Perspective. But when I read this, I knew that the ship is sinking. The rats are leaving at a pace that, yeah. So I don't know how many of you are aware of this. Let me pull this up. On Zero Hedge, you got to love it. Listen, if Twitter, and I think Facebook was the other one that I think barred Zero Hedge. They got information they don't want the masses to get out. So get this. The Fed is planning to send money directly to Americans in the next crisis. Next crisis? What are we in right now? I don't know. Hold on 1 second, folks. I have a puppy dog that's literally trying to get into my lap. Now, this is what's weird. If you're an American, the Federal Reserve is going to set up an account for you. In that account, they're going to put $10,000 for every American, as this article points out. I'm sure that this is going to be subject to tweaking, but they've seemed to have settled now on a structure. That structure is $10,000. Now, you're not going to be able to actually physically hold this because this is a digital account. Read what it's really interesting. This is what they said. It says that this response was taking the two propose creating a monetary tool that they call recession insurance bonds, which draw on some of the advances in digital payments, which will be wired instantly to Americans. So the number came out today. Another 1.5 million Americans filed first-time unemployment, bringing the number now to nearly 65 million Americans that since the beginning of the crash, they broke the economic engine, folks. They broke it. And when you add the other 20 plus million that the government doesn't count, we are in an area that folks, they didn't even see this in the Great Depression. The second quarter GDP fell by 33%. Ladies and gentlemen, it did not get headline news. Why? They're not going to talk about this. Because, folks, we have gone over the cliff. 1 in 2 Americans are unemployed right now. Actually, I think the number is 6 in 10. If it wasn't for the artificial subsidizing of paychecks by the government, adding to the states, we would be in a world of hurt right now. While all this has been going on, the Federal Reserve has completely taken over the free markets. The chairman said that they can increase their balance sheet. This is their negative balance sheet, folks, up to $50 trillion. The Federal Reserve has bought the bond market. They are literally now in the stock market. Yeah, this is just not good. So it's estimated 22 million Americans are already going to be evicted because they can't pay their rents. Most of them come out of the service sector industry. And as reported in the Wall Street Journal, 50% of those jobs will never come back. And if you've gone to the grocery store, where in one aspect we see deflation on the monetary policy because of they're trying to increase inflation, they're not even bringing into account what the rise of goods and services are doing. Case in point, when you see, for instance, like gold hitting over the $2,000 an ounce, folks, that's inflation. That's hyperinflation. Because what it's saying is that the market has no trust in the dollar. And here's why they have reason for that. As Coronado explains in detail, Congress would grant the Federal Reserve an additional tool for providing support, say 1% of the GDP. This is selling your soul for a bowl of porridge. In a lump sum, that would be divided equally and distributed to households in a recession. This is like a rainy day fund now. Recession insurance bonds would be zero coupon securities, a contingent asset of households that would basically lie in wait. The trigger could be reaching a zero lower bond on interest rates, or as economist Claudia Shyam has proposed, a 0.5 percentage point increase in the unemployment rate. The Fed would then activate the securities and deposit the funds direct digitally into household apps. Now, this seems really nice on the surface. You're going to be able to eat. You're going to be able, why? Because eventually what's going to happen, the Federal Reserve is going to come in where we used to have Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. That's where, government would underwrite mortgages. Now you're just going to have the Federal Reserve come in and buy it. They're going to buy the real estate, because the landlords can't pay the bank forecloses on the landlord, but the landlord can't kick out the tenants because the tenants are being subsidized by the government, but yet not compensating the landlord for the losses. Yeah, it sounds like socialism, doesn't it? But this is how it's going to work. Now, as they get into this, I thought that this one was really interesting. I want to get down here in a quote. Y'all just talk amongst yourselves. He said it is the most efficient form of macroeconomic standpoint in supporting and spending and confidence. The fear of unemployment acts as an acceleration on a recession. Fear? There's a shock. People are losing their jobs or worry about losing their jobs. They get very risk adverse by getting money to consumers who can limit the depth and duration of a recession. And you could actually generate real inflation. It could be beneficial for not only avoiding negative rates, but creating a more healthy interest rate market and a more healthy yield curve. Now, if you're in your 30s and 40s and 50s and your 20s, you really need to be paying attention to this, because this gets really interesting. Let's continue. The two objections were related to the switch of deposits in normal times from a traditional banking system into digital accounts, and the extra stress in crisis times as people want to get safe. An account with the central bank is safe because the central bank can always print money to honor that claim. This is not a negotiation. This is a notification. This is a takeover. A private bank can't do that because their asset side has all kinds of credit on it. What we've created is a narrow bank type model. Narrow banks only take deposits and invest them in the safe assets that's small and fit for purpose, with a cap of $10,000 per person. One challenge is making it profitable for the digital providers. We want strict limitation on the fees, so we're reaching people that are underbanked. The underbanked is a huge problem in America. Nearly 40% are underbanked in America. Number may be even higher by now. But we also want a public-private partnership with a diversity of competitors jumping into this market. Privacy is just as important, because one thing that might induce them is access to people's data. As the Fed, you are blessing that, and what structure do you put around that? And it goes on from there. The whole point to this, ladies and gentlemen, is the understanding that this is very, very troubling. What this is saying, that there is not going to be any recovery anytime soon. The haves and the have-nots are going to continue to be separated. Recently, I read a story that we're really come into this crisis point, and this is why we're talking about this now, is because there is a very real possibility we're witnessing the collapse of the dollar right now. Uh, Again, I talked about grocery prices. I continue to talk because we all have to eat something. I hope. I hope you're eating. But nevertheless, it gets difficult. I've lived through a number of recessions. I lived through the one that took place in the 70s with the Arab oil embargo. I lived through the crash of 1986 on Wall Street. I've seen the time under a Democratic administration, Carter particularly, where housing, to buy a house, you were paying 27% interest. Nothing was being built. And today, it's unprecedented to see the amount of people that are now out of a job. And the government has no choice. I mean, we're literally following down the same path, other than the fact that in 1929, they didn't have the Federal Reserve, although it was already being, no, they did, excuse me. What am I saying? I've got my dates. In 1887, I believe, the United States declared bankruptcy. The Civil War bankrupted the United States. It's not talked about, but it's literally what happened. And what the elite bloodlines did was that they came in, and Jekyll Island, check it out. There's a book actually written on it. It's fascinating. I mean, if there are dark overlords running our brains, their plan was the most devious plan ever. And every American citizen is a slave. We are. We're a slave to the debt. And this gets a problem because there comes only so much point. And I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I know that the dollar is worthless. And that's why I see magic as such a strong ally. Listen, I believe this, that you can literally have food appear. I've seen it happen for myself. Now, I use another principle, seed time, harvest time. I've always given food away, always. Lynn and I do it regularly. And our harvest has never ended. I look back in times in my life and I realize I was using magic already. Abracadabra. I didn't realize how strong it was. I used it under the guise many times as prayer. But yet, if I hadn't taken the steps and employed other laws, I would have had nothing in which nature could have used. You have to give the seed in order for the harvest to be yielded. It's just that easy. What do you see the dollar doing, Wayne, as soon as the crash, and what comes next? I can already tell you they have the you have the euro, you're going to have the Nero, the North American dollar. It's already printed, sitting in warehouses. You have to have it. They just re-upped the NAFTA agreement. That's why world economies work into very strong plays. I think that this virus has been an accelerant to that. So as George Soros does, George Soros has made his money on collapsing countries' currencies. George Soros started investing against the United States, I guess back in right after 2001. And the forces are now here. I mean, the Federal Reserve owns the paper, and they can only artificially support the dollar until its values. And when you look at the values today, folks, remember those values are magic. It's the best word I can say. They're magic. Why? They use formulas, magical spells that the masses don't know anything about. So one thing I learned in the payment industry, I saw more magic being performed by people who didn't realize they were even involved in it. It's true. I've told you before, the Federal Reserve has wizards, witches. They got seers. They have a whole division, a whole group that monitor the sun, because they know that when the cosmic rays or the sun particles are hitting Earth, let's say if we're in the middle of, we get into a sunspot, you know, a solar flare, a coronal stream that's high density of particles, it affects us up here. And it is an opportunity where the Fed actually knows they can manipulate the market, because humans are very easily to manipulate. They look at lunar cycles. And you'd have to say that they're using some pretty powerful magic right now for the way things have. I mean, you know, folks, let's just be very candid with one another. They broke the engine. They broke the economic engine. No one in their right mind would have ever done that. And they can't fix it. Where's all this freaking high intelligence at? Where are the innovative ideas? Where are the innovators? We ain't got it. It's like we're under a spell. I think we are. You know, I did a whole thing yesterday on those small little life forms inside of us. Got all of us thinking. You know? And you can't help it not just have the perspective that there's something else coming on. But getting back to the person, and listen, you can continue to pass these stimulus packages. I mean, it's all for show right now. They're going to do it. I think the question is how much. They want virtually everyone to be on some sort of government assistance. Why? Well, that controls you. It limits you. And once that gets into your head, then it's all over. You're just not going to have that entrepreneurial spirit anymore. And we've got to be, I'm just being very candid with you, that it's going to get hurt. Listen, you know, it's like the whole thing with the coin shortage. They're saying because of the lockdown. Isn't it interesting they're using the term lockdown now? Wait a minute. I thought they told us that this was shelter in place. Oh, so now you're telling us that it was a lockdown. Like none of us figured that one out very quickly. And look what's going on. Folks, they got checkpoints. New York City, checkpoints. And states. Holy crapola. What happened? What happened to the land of the free and the home of the brave? I mean, is that just bye-bye? And now there's no coins. But that is deliberate, folks. Why? It's going to condition you very gently. We're just going, you don't convert somebody by pushing. You convert somebody by nudging. That was the Obama doctrine. They could never have won in the mindset of America after 9/11, but what they could do was nudge. And you nudge, and you nudge, and before you know it, your nudging has transported you. Wait a minute. I thought we were there. How did we get here? Nudging, nudging. And so the coin shortage. You see grocery stores, all the retailers now, which by the way, the retail apocalypse has wiped out the retail industry in the United States, but I digress on that. By this cockamamie story of coin shortage. So what are the stores doing? Well, they're rounding up your purchase to the next dollar. Now, they say that they'll credit you by the payment instrument that you slid into my machine, and we're going to digitally credit you. So when you get used to having no more change, there she sails. You won't have any more paper currency. And if you have any of this, whoop, 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 they're going to do what the Democrats did under FDR. By executive order, interesting enough, not by Congress, where it made it illegal for Americans to own gold and eventually silver. So let's see, if we said goodbye to this, we say goodbye to our coins, we say goodbye to this, what do we have left? Experiment monkey, that's some wise words you just said there. Then you're only going to be left with what this is, which is now that machine, believe it or not, is this machine. This machine used to be this machine, but now this machine has blended with this machine because now this is not only a payment tender, it's a payment receiver. Now, chances are you're going to have to probably download an app from the Federal Reserve, mandatory, in order to get your account. And who's not going to want $10,000? Who's not going to want this recession rainy day fund? Do you see what they're doing? So you no longer have to save. Oh, they're going to tell you it's wise, but how the hell do you save when you're barely feeding yourself and keeping a roof over your head? And there ain't no jobs out there, which means that, you see, that just leads to more poverty. When you burn out cities through riots and other things, and you destroy the infrastructure, but you've taken away the tax base, there's nothing to replace that. And so blight sets in. Blight is like having leprosy. Once you get it in the tip of your finger, it's eventually going to spread to the whole finger, all your fingers, eventually your hand, your arm. And that's exactly what's happening right now. We're seeing it unfold. You've got to have your magic. You have to have it. Listen, if there are spirits out there that actually have the ability to exist, and if they are, in fact, friends of mankind, then you need those allies. Because there's abundance everywhere. And remember, what is faith? Now faith is the evidence of things hoped for, the substance of things. Excuse me, I had that wrong. Now faith is the substance of things not seen, the evidence of things hoped for. So we got to learn to start creating. The thing about it is virtually all the gold and silver is still here. It's not gone anywhere. And the earth has a lot more of it, believe it or not. The earth is not running short of anything. One minor cataclysm, and guess what? New riches come all the way up from out of the earth. And I happen to know that there are spirits. Prosperity is a spirit. Why wouldn't it be not a spirit? If you have the spirit of death, you have the spirit of murder, the spirit of joy. Everything has a spirit attached to it. I think when we cross over, I think we're going to be really quite overwhelmed with the hierarchy. Depends on your perspective, I guess. But nevertheless, during the times when resources have been short, I never saw witches do without. Never read that they were ever without. In fact, they seemed to be very content. They had the occult. And if you want to call us pagans, well, fine. Pagan just means country folk. So I lived in Texas. I got Texas in me. So I'd be country folk. I worked on a garden on a farm. I know exactly the hard work that it's entailed. So fine. You want to call me a commoner? That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Label me anything you want. But I know what I know. I know what works. I know I can call forth wind. I can call forth rain. Even having to go against what is naturally already set up here. Yeah, Brent, it's true. Nina says, be prepared and not scared. I like that. That's exactly. And this is the time to be prepared. When the whole country shut down, Lynn and I never did without. In fact, if you hadn't told me that, there was no traffic, that's one way you could tell that this was a lockdown. But for myself and Lynn, it was no big deal. Why? Well, you've been preparing for this for a long time. We knew the collapse was coming. I worked with the Federal Reserve. I listen, when the transition went from where the commoner would go to his bank or his savings and loan, we don't have in America savings and loans anymore, which is a travesty. It was a huge foundation. It supported the working class and even the underclass of America, the savings and loan, the local savings and loan. They didn't need the damn bank. Why? Because they were run by the local people. Savings and loans accounted for virtually all the mortgages at one time. It was the introduction. I remember myself in the first grade out in Santa Clara. They had a program where they came into the schools and every student was required to open up a savings account. And each quarter, I think it was a regular period, you would bring, and I think it was like $1 or something back then, 1960, $1 was a lot of money, far worth more than this dollar today. But why? Because it conditioned us, future citizens, to be disciplined enough to save. We don't have that today. It's a shame. But look at what they're doing again. It's pushing us. So now the government's going to become the nanny. And say, don't worry about that. Listen, we're going to give you $10,000. And they're talking about this additional recessionary fund. Why? They know the depression is here. They can't avoid it. I don't think they want to. What does that mean? I don't know, the inflation I'm seeing in the groceries and the delivery chain, the prices that you see on the mercantile. I mean, something's coming, folks, and it ain't pretty. And what they don't want is more of what they're seeing in the streets today. Because when people can't eat, that gets to be a real problem. Big problem, actually. No little problem about it. It's a big problem. And so, yeah. So we're going to continue to focus in on magic. By the way, I do have a PDF that will help kind of explain. Um, and I'm just going to pull it up here. I heard thunder outside, so I know my dog will be in here in a minute. Here we go. This is the Mythology of Money. And it really, it's a deep read, but it's a read that will definitely, it shows you how money is really this illusion. I mean, this is pure magic the way you look at it, that money is probably one of the highest forms of magic that I know of. But I've been studying everything is associated with money. Why is it that all the gods of the world, whether it's the Christian God, the Jewish God, the Islam God, and the Hindu God, all these gods, why do they always surround themselves with gold, silver, precious stones? I mean, if the spirit realm is supposed to be this all high mighty, let me separate myself from the physicality, man, then what the freak are these beings doing with all the gold and diamonds and, got a throne of, jasper and all this other kind of crap? I mean, what's up with that? That tells me, and you see it common thread throughout all of these religions. Maybe there is the old expression, you can't take it with you. Well, maybe not in one form, but maybe in another. Why? Yes. Well, wasn't there a passage that said, store your treasures in heaven where neither thief nor rust nor moth? I don't know. What are treasures? Maggie said, she just groaned on that one. It's like, I don't know. As a dog, I don't really care. I mean, that's how we're supposed to go through life. But anyway, check it out. If you want it, it's a good read. It's out there and you can check it out. Stones resonate. Emperor X, it's very interesting. It really is. I did a whole thing on the ephod that, the high priest wore before going into the Holy of Holies. And that ephod and the silk suit underneath was all designed to keep the electromagnetic energy from electrocuting the freaking priest. And I contend that the ephod was in fact nothing more than a communication device that was a code that opened up a certain technology that this being was inside of. But that's just my opinion. And what do I know? A little bit, just a little bit. But it's so true. It seems gold is something the gods love. And of course, we know the story of the Anunnaki. If you follow that vein of thought, then, humans were manufactured as slaves to dig the gold. And here we are all this time later still digging the gold. And, how many people have sold their perceived souls for something that they can't even eat? That's the thing about it, man. You can't eat the damn stuff. I mean, like give me 5 gallons of honey. Now that I can eat, that I can sustain myself on, and that really works. But yeah. Oh, folks. So yeah, Let's just get prepared, you know? Um, these are nothing more than perceptions that man assigns to it. And if you look at what's happened in the collapse of many other countries' economies, when you start bringing barrelfuls, there are countries in Africa that print billion-dollar notes. That's crazy. That's the type of stuff I'm talking about, where you're bringing wheelbarrows of this paper crap and you can't even buy a loaf of bread. What's up with that? You know? But you know what? If I was planting my garden, well, I would have just about enough things. I wouldn't give a crap about that. And if you want to barter with me, that's good. You know, listen, I got a whole bushel full of here of some carrots and tomatoes and a number of vegetables, but I need bread. Do you happen to have flour? Well, it just so happens that I bake bread. Well, good. How about if I gave you a bushel of fresh vegetables for, let's say, 4 loaves of bread? Yeah, that would work. And I hear my dog. What is it, Dancer? Come here. She hears thunder and come here. All right, Miss Dancer. Say hello to the world. And of course, now get down, Maggie. All right, folks. Obviously, I have been interrupted by nature itself, and I have 2 beautiful creatures here. That one doesn't care about lightning, the other one is freaked out about it. So honey is Goldie. Who said that? 7, you're absolutely right. Honey is one of the best currencies you can think of. Yeah, you got honey, man. You got people want, and you know, the interesting thing is as well, alcohol. So buy some Everclear. You'd be surprised the medicinal value of it. All right, folks, see you tonight over on the Steiger Perspective. If you tune in, tomorrow is card reading day, and we have Brian, we have Nina and Steve. And if you want to join us, let me know. And in the meantime, be good to yourself. Bosto to you, to everyone, and may favor continue to grace you. All right, here you go, Miss Maggie. Maggie now has a cracker that she's happy with. So, speaking for Dancer and for myself and our guest, Maggie, we all bid you a good afternoon. We will see you tomorrow. All right, folks. Bye-bye.